Should be a nice little short one today. Thanks for joining us. Like I said, talking about cold weather liming. I don't know about where everyone else is, but I had my first snow a couple weeks ago, a little bit of dusting. So tis the season. And so we'll talk about our little agenda, what we're going to talk about today. On the cold weather side, we're going to talk about the obvious problems, what sort of solutions we got for you, talk through how we do it with some tips, and on the how, kind of what our reagents are doing to help us keep moving. And then we're going to try something different on the storage pig side. The other half should be about a half hour today, if I'm guessing total. Second half, we're going to run through some FAQs that we've heard over our time with our storage pigs, and we're going to do something a little different. We're going to try to open this up for a little panel discussion. And did I spell panel wrong? Embarrassing. So hopefully it'll be a nice little change. Hopefully without that awkward passing of the small little lapel microphone that we see whenever we're out in conferences. And if you do want to add any questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat, and we can try to address them whenever we open things up. So with that, here to talk about keeping work going while it's cold. Getting work done while it's cold outside. We know that those deadlines are harder in the cold and wet months, especially those earthwork contractors. We got the cold, we got the wet, we got the snow, we got the frost, frozen soils, all that going on. Well, luckily, my little Superman, it's not just me, it's our whole team here, Mintek Resources, the rescue. We've got the reagents, the solutions to if you've been around any of these webinars or any lunch and learns, we preach it, we dry, modify, and stabilize. Even in those cold months, we know that we've got those projects going. Remember being out a couple years ago when it was 19 degrees out and we were still working. So we're going to quickly dry up those projects, and we're going to help drive those chemical reactions through our exothermic reactions. That is, whenever our products are around water, they create some heat. They're going to dramatically improve our soil properties. So this is on the modification side. Medium to high plasticity soils that contain a lot of moisture tend to be especially problematic this time of year. Always a pain, but this time of year just got that extra little thorn in the side to deal with. We can alter that plasticity index, changing the critical water content, shrinking the liquid limit, plastic limit gap to reduce the plasticity index. We can reduce, if not eliminate, that shrink swell potential. We work through that with a couple of the names I've seen on this call on some of our projects. We're interested in that shrink swell potential. And we're going to increase that strength both immediately with the modification and then long-term with soil stabilization. And all that is going to kind of work together to help make compaction better, can make compaction easier, that is, protect against compaction from future freeze-thaw cycles. We're going to minimize the amount of moisture that can get in the system through stabilization with a solid monolith. And we're really just going to help protect ourselves with these in these cold months and make for an overall better working platform. So right into the tips. Tip number one is add water. Sounds counterproductive, but it is not. So our cal cement reagents are quicklime. We need that free water to start the chemical reaction, particularly if that groundwater is at or near freezing. We can't just have, if it's a wet site and we're looking just to dry it, but all that moisture has now been locked up physically in ice. We need some free water in there to help start those reactions. And once that heat starts going, we're going to start to thaw out that water, making it available to either dry up and get out of there or drive those other reactions. And there's a difference between the lime products, especially between lime and Portland cement. The more available oxides, the more kind of power, the more drying power we have. Just to kind of reiterate what that water does, on an extreme side that we wouldn't necessarily see in the field. On the left is a picture of me. We had some high school kids walk through our lab, and I'm literally frying an egg with the wrong proportions of soil to or water to lime that you wouldn't necessarily see out in the field. And on the right, if you check out our YouTube page, we've got some kind of neat videos. I was allowed to kind of go free in the lab a little bit, have a little bit of fun, and we we showed kind of the drying and the heat that can be generated. And then in the middle of this picture is one cold day in Chicago. We have spread the lime, water truck went by, and the soil reclaimer's getting ready to get on there, and we are actually seeing steam, not dust, there in the middle. So kind of a nice reaction that the project owner can see the product working. Number 2, up the dose. More product, more heat. So kind of the egg frying situation that I explained. So if we can just add that maybe 1, maybe 2% more product, then we can help to adequately warm the soil. And how much, it all depends. It's the easy answer for me, but it's really the right answer. There's so many other factors. How deep are you working? What are the soil conditions? What are you trying to do? So a number of things go into that, but up the dose just a little bit to help drive those reactions. Make it so the cure times, sometimes cure times have to be a little bit longer to, the temperature might be a little lower than what it would be if it was a 50, 60, 70 degree day outside. One thing to on the cure side is many DOTs out there specify, a 7-day minimum. But we'd like to tell folks, let the tests out there tell you when it's okay to get on there if you're not working under those conditions. Is a proof roll letting you know that, okay, we can get construction traffic on there and get back to work. Then obviously enough drying and modifying has happened where we can, like I said, get back to work. Number 3, sealing the heat. Once we get our lift on there, let's get some compaction on the smooth, seal with a smooth drum roller immediately after mixing. It's going to retain and trap that heat once you get it going. Better heat exposure compared to just leaving it loose. It's kind of like putting a nice warm blanket on yourself whenever it's cold outside. If you're working in a cut fill situation, moving that fill from somewhere else, get some compaction on it right away. If you're working in a fill area, get that next lift on top right away. Like I said, another analogy for the blanket situation. And the picture of what we're looking at is kind of my ideal conditions on the left compared to the frost on the right. A longer mellow period we had mentioned, just to make sure that there's complete hydration and the reaction with the soil has happened. And sometimes the mellowing, as cold temps are out there, they kind of just slow the reaction down. And depending on a lot of things, depth, is the soil frozen, the soil moisture content, what's going on with the air temperature, number of factors go into that. But tip number 3, sealing the heat, help to keep that heat where it should be in the soil, not up in the air. Number 4, don't skimp on the horsepower. Use the soil reclaimer to mix the product. They're impressive machines. They're always the way we want to see them mixed in. Granted, there's sometimes you're working on a tight area where you're using an excavator arm or maybe a couple other different ways, but this is definitely the preferred way. They have impressive speeds, power that's going to sufficiently mix the product. And then it might be minimal, but there is some friction going on in that mixing drum, and it's not going to hurt us. If anything, it's going to help us to just get that little bit more heat going. And that extra heat is just going to make it available to start those desired reactions that we want going in the soil. Number 5, you're working in some granular soils, some sandier stuff, and we need to use Portland cement. Great, right product, right project. Always preach that. However, if you're doing some soil cement in the cold weather, just a little bit of quicklime, maybe 1%, maybe 2%, can help kind of add that extra heat that can make that Portland cement cure as it would in warmer temperatures. We've had people go as far as actually putting concrete blankets on top to keep that heat in. So it's just some people kind of thinking outside the box. But tip number 5, jumpstart the Portland cement using the lime products. And then tip number 6, insulate and protect. So it's still soil. So we're got to protect that treated material. If we're drying a lift or stabilizing a passive grade, stabilized in a paddock grade, we can't expect it to last through the winter without protection. It's still soil. Can't run heavy machinery on it over and over again and expect it to withstand any freeze thaw events. So it's best to get that last lift treated, compacted, bring in the next lift to hold the heat in and protect it from freezing overnight. You can kind of have like kind of a sacrificial layer there, and then we're coming in the next day and treating that layer anyway. So use that as the one that's going to take the beating overnight to maybe hold up to the freezing temperatures. For paddock grade, let's get some stone on as soon as possible, even if it's not your final aggregate base. For a few inches of stone, we'll take the majority of the freezing damage, and it really just helps kind of protect everybody's investment. So run through them real quick. So we're going to add water, counterintuitive, but we need that free moisture to get those chemical reactions going. Up the dose just a little bit, 1%, 2%, increase the temperature again, help to drive the reactions. Sealing the heat, get a nice little warm blanket on there by making sure it's not the nice loose soil from after the reclaimer. Don't skimp on the horsepower. Use that reclaimer, get it mixed in there well. If you're using cement, a little bit of quicklime can help to increase the temperature and allow it to cure as it would in better conditions. And we're going to insulate and protect it, get those blankets on it, whether that be a sacrificial layer of soil that we're going to treat the next day or some stone to kind of take the beating of any freeze thaw events. All right, 10, 13, not bad on the first half there. Storage pig trailers, FAQ. So we had some that kind of came in, like I said, over the time we've been working with them, or as people were registering in, they had a couple comments about things to speak to. So I'll start with that before I open it up to the panel. And when I open up to the panel, I'll kind of take a break. I'll stop presenting, and I'll add in some of our sales team and some of our other folks in the office and whatnot. All right. What kind of PPE do you recommend when blowing off at the end of the day and when cleaning with spray liquid chemicals? So for me, when we're talking PPE around Lyme, sorry about that. When we are talking PPE around Lyme, my standard is always glasses are a must, dusty conditions, goggles, sometimes kind of do a hybrid between the two and do a gasketed safety glasses. I wear those from time to time. So number one for sure, safety glasses. And then I got the overalls picture there. Cover your exposed skin, minimize that. So those are kind of the big ones for me around Lyme. We mentioned blowing off. So around the pigs, compressed air, working with pneumatics, stuff like that. It's a good idea to have hearing protection around. Anyone's been around any of that knows that noise can get loud fast. So that would be another one. And I tend to keep a respirator in my helmet in case things do get really dusty. The hose is off for some reason, someone's on the ground, a little bit of wind, the respirator, throw that on and kind of can get on with it. The spray liquid chemicals made me think of this. So a little dilute vinegar situation. Put that in maybe a garden sprayer, spray that on, maybe a little bit of scrubbing can help get stubborn buildup off. And then after I'm done with that sort of dilute vinegar, a little bit of water just to make sure that that's rinsed off is the way I usually go. Sometimes Lime Away or CLR are other options. And then, obviously follow any of the safety precautions that are listed on any of those bottles. So those would be my tips. So Lyme safety PPE, glasses are a must, minimize exposed skin. You probably got your hard hat on and high vis being on the site anyway. Hearing protection for any compressed air, and respirator if it's dusty. How do you set it up and run it? Loaded question. Not a loaded one, just a long question. So my short answer is we've got a SOP on our website. I did a little pig overview video that's on our YouTube page. You can check that out. If you have any specific questions during setup, give Mariah a call. Her number's there, or you likely already have it somewhere. Feel free to give her a call. She can work through any issues you're having. So that's kind of my real quick answer to that one. How do you set up and run it? Well, we cover initial setup, loading material, transferring the material, how to clean it out when you're all done with it, or if you want to move it on a different area on your site. And then we kind of take a stab at plugging. Lots of folks have different ways they try to deal with the plug, so we kind of threw in how we usually deal with that on our end. So speaking of cleaning out, here are kind of two that are more or less the same question, one with a little bit longer answer. What do I need to do to move my pig around my site? Underline that, around the site, compared to what do I need to do when I'm all done with the pig? So around the site, we're going to empty the pig as much as we can. If there's more than residual in there, we've actually seen someone was moving around, didn't quite get enough out of there. They came to an abrupt stop. Material shifted in the pig and actually damaged the pig. So we don't want that to happen. You don't want that to happen. So empty the pig. Lift all the legs and pads, except for the front two. You kind of need those for it to be standing. Then you can work on moving that with a truck or however you're going to move around your site. But lift all the legs up and then carefully move it to the other location on your site. So that would be my counsel is just be careful. Don't come to that abrupt stop. Empty that pig out. When you're all done with the pig, we're going to empty it out. Mariah's going to ask you for a picture from the top hatch just to be sure you didn't check that last compartment or something like that. We need to make sure that all the material's out of that pig. Clean the outside. Things happen, dust happens. There might be a stone stuck between the tires. Just kind of clean it off, give it a once over, make sure it's kind of road ready. Raise up those legs and get it pretty much ready for us to pick it up. What do you do if there's an issue when the pig is delivered or an issue arises while you're on your site? I'd say the best thing, let's just work together, report them as soon as possible. If it came that way, let us know. We'll work through that, work to get it right. Something happened on the site, great, let's figure out what happened and let's figure out what we can do to fix it. But we want to try to get those fixes rolling as soon as we can. We don't want to be picking them up and having to deal with it later whenever we're hoping to get that pig over to someone else who might need it. So we don't want to get those maintenance issues kind of in the works. And then one more before I attempt to make other folks panelists is just a friendly reminder. Anything that came with the pig, please keep it on the pig. We're going to ask for it to come back. Fittings, if hoses happen to come with it, which they typically do not, we don't supply the hoses. You're going to need your own hoses. Just a reminder to keep all that stuff with the pig as it was whenever it was delivered to you. So with that, we got about 10 minutes or so. And I saw a couple questions came in. I'm going to stop presenting, do some clicking, and get our sales guys on. And we've got a couple others that are going to be promoted to panelists as well. So bear with me one moment. All right, Norm, you're okay to talk in our Western region. Rob, you ready to go? Let's see. I've got a phone number that's going to be Josh 937. Bear with me, folks. Allowed to talk. Dale's a little hoarse today, but I'm going to let you talk, Dale, too, if you want to. Working through some other guys. Mariah from who you can talk to if you've got any issues when it's on the site. Mariah, you can talk now. Brian Turner from NAJ Trucking, huge asset for us. So NAJ is kind of the folks we use to transport our materials, our pigs to and from the sites. Thanks for joining us, Ryan. And his team helps us do any maintenance we need on the pigs as well. So a wealth of knowledge. If I can't answer it, or our sales guys haven't seen it or know about your question for whatever reason, that's why we asked Ryan to join us today. Tim, you're good. So I think that's most of my sales guys. So if any of you guys want to, Rob, I see you're off mute. Can you talk? Just make sure I'm doing things right.
Can you hear me, Phil?
I can. All right. Sounds good.
Beautiful.
So I was hoping it was going to be less awkward than the pass of the mic on the in-person conferences, but we work through that. Appreciate the patience. So yeah, I saw a couple came in on the Q&A. We can maybe run through that.
I can't see the Q&A.
Well, I'll talk through it then, Tim. I got you.
Yeah.
So first, kind of a general comment from Josh, our inside sales rep there in Beaver Creek. He said, along with Mariah, feel free to give Josh a call. Josh Weezer, sorry, Josh. His number 937-641-9901. So if you don't have that number, I'm sure you got it somewhere. Feel free to use Josh as a resource as well. Good call, Josh. And then let me read through. I got two others. Here's one. Will the Calciment LKD generate the same heat as quicklime when using it to spike Portland cement in cold weather? Not quite. So that's what we're talking about. Available lime content. Quicklime per ASTM specifications has over 90% calcium and magnesium oxides, and overall just a higher available oxide, whereas the Calciment LKD product is lower, typically about half of that, depending on where it's coming from, what's going on at the sites. It can be a range, but generally about half of that. And then just for more comparison, Portland cement does have some available lime content to it, but a lot, if not most of that, gets used up in its own hydration reaction. So that's kind of whenever I speak to drying capabilities, quicklime does have a little bit of not a little bit, it's got a bigger punch and a little bit more heat associated with it. But that's not to say that the Calciment LKD couldn't be an answer as well. So always work with the sales guys on pricing and availability, then we can work through what we think might be the best option.
Can I comment on that too?
Yes, please.
So it will LKD will generate some heat, especially if you can get a high cal LKD. I know there's some dolomitics out there that will not generate that same kind of heat. And it could be used in place of quicklime, other than you will have to increase the dose rate. So let's say you can go in with a quicklime of 1% or 2%, you may have to go in there with a 2%, 3%, or 4%. So it will just come down to location of the project, logistics, availability, that kind of stuff. So don't count it out. If you're looking for this, I believe the question was in regards to increasing soil temperature so that you can prolong your cement stabilization season. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will the LKD generate the same heat as quicklime when using it to spike Portland cement in cold weather?
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to use it in the 0-degree days. It's not going to do the same thing that the quicklime does. But in the 40 to 30-degree days, it might work. You just need to put a little bit more to it to generate that same heat.
And then real quick on the high cal versus DOLA thing, since it came up, it's worth maybe expanding on a little bit. High calcium is almost entirely calcium oxide when I speak to high calcium. Dolomitic quicklime, and for that fact, dolomitic Calciment LKD just has a larger portion of magnesium in it. And the dolos just, they react a little slower. And so the reaction, since it's a little slower, it's not as, things aren't as compact in a slow period of time. So that temperature the temperature change isn't quite as extreme. So that's why Tim was talking about Dola versus high cal, and you wouldn't see that same heat rise with the dolomitic, but it's not to say that overall the same sort of modification and stabilization, if you're using it, wouldn't happen. So we've done testing high cal versus dolo, and for the construction purposes, they're virtually indistinguishable. Why would you make high cal versus dolo? Much larger lime conversation, because lime goes into more than just construction. The steel guys like it for that magnesium portion, helps protect the refractory bricks in their furnaces. Water treatment folks, all different applications for lime kind of might want different chemistry or sizing of quicklime. So that's a real quick lesson on high cal versus dolo. Let's see. Does quicklime and LKD perform the same way? Will 2% quicklime dry the same way as 2% LKD? So no, our testing we've done here at our innovation center today over in the lab. There's about a 2-to-1 ratio for LKD to quicklime. Has to do with the available lime content. It's just a matter of how much water can chemically combine. So some of the videos I've done in the lab kind of compare one of them to Portland cement. And then, we can work on doing some things to do the direct comparison between the two, but our testing has pretty clearly shown that the 2-to-1 ratio is what we see and kind of tell our folks out there. And then once again, work with our sales guys, price and availability, what's best for the project. That kind of helps to drive us one way or the other. And Tim, one of your comments was going to lead right into that. Oh yeah, just a little bit higher dose for the calcium LKD products compared to the quicklime.
Yeah, and if I can add to that a little bit, so this is Dale Andrews. I'm Phil's counterpart. I know there's a little bit of debate about the LKD versus the quicklime in terms of its drying and or cold weathering, and I'll just add that it comes down to as simple as this: calcium oxides are what are the predominant component constituent that make up our quicklime. 90% or greater is what required by ASTM C977. With our LKD products, they are a byproduct. They have a portion of lesser burnt stone because they are a baghouse product, of course. There's also fly ash, which is deposilin. We rely on that to help expand and utilize that in some of the less clay-rich soils, and there's benefits to that. But at the end of the day, the oxides are the most predominant drying factor, and they are what, when convert from oxides to hydroxides through the absorption of water, generate the heat, and so therefore it's really a simple math problem. There's no mystery, there's no magic to it. We're looking at that a little bit more closely in our labs so that we can explain that a little bit more visually with data. But that's the reality. That being said, if you double the amount of LKD, you've got the same equivalent of oxides as our quicklime product. And again, it just comes back to pricing, logistics, availability. They're both great products.
Yeah, thanks, Dale. And one more. Do we need to add more water in colder temps than in warmer weather? So Tara, I'll stop your question there to speak to it, and then because I think you kind of almost answered. Do you need to add more water in colder temps than in warmer weather? Yes, to a point, and then to add on to what else you typed there to help get the reaction started. So even if it's a drying application and things are just frozen solid, a little bit of water is going to help to kickstart that reaction to help to thaw everything else you got on your site. So it's still going to be the same. We're still going to have the same targets. We're going to have the same optimal moisture content to get us the density that we need, that we've determined in the lab by looking at our proctors after we've treated. So we're still going to have the same targets, but we might need a little bit more water just to get everything going. So we always like to be 1 to 2% over optimum anyway. So hopefully that works in our favor to kind of allow us to add a little bit of that water, modifying and stabilizing where maybe the water isn't graciously provided by Mother Nature. Then it's not as much of an issue to have to add, just a little bit more. What do you think, guys? Got anything to add to that?
Yeah, just on the frozen soil aspect, it's the free water that's available when you're mixing it, right? So if you're talking that it was 40 degrees during the day and it dropped into the low 20s at night and the top couple inches got frozen, and below that, 2 inches, the rest is just a mucky mess. Once your mixing drum goes through that, just the friction and the mechanical action of that drum bringing the soil up into the mixing chamber and it getting beat around and stuff, you will most likely have enough available water in a drying application if it's like that. But if you're showing up to a job site and you went through the weekend with super cold temperatures and the top 6 inches are frozen, then you're probably going to have to start adding water to that. Whether it's just top water, you put the lime down, you top water the lime to kind of start to generate that heat, and then put the drum to it and start mixing it in and stuff. So, but yeah, that's definitely it's a field call. There's, like with most soil drying, it's a stick your thumb up, kind of turn it sideways and go, yeah, I think that's about what's going to work. So having an experienced contractor doing the work and an experienced field tech out there to observe, like all of those play into this whole thing, and once again, we're always a resource. So just, one of us could show up on a job site pretty quickly to help out. Don't expect to call us at 8 a.m. and expect us there at noon, but the next day or whatever to help out. So that's all I had to add.
Sounds good. Another one came in on the side was what sort of, I minimized it and deleted it, what sort of fittings come with the pig. So I mentioned that everything comes with it. Please return it. Our standard size is 5 inches. So our some folks are standard for them is 4, and we've had some thinking 6, but ours is going to show up with 5 inches or 5-inch standard. And generally, we don't provide the hoses. If you work something out with Mariah or Josh where you need us to get a hose, just remember, please return it with the pig. However, that is not the standard. So check, see if any more coming in. One kind of housekeeping item. If you requested a PDH certificate, expect to receive an email from Chris Ransdell here from Mintek, either by the end of today. Most likely today's usually on top of things, if not tomorrow. So we'll get those PDHs out to you as soon as we can in the next couple hours. Let's see.
Phil, we had a question come in about the how quickly can you get a storage pig?
That's a good one. I might hand that one off to Mariah or Josh. They might have a better finger on the pulse of that one.
Yep, I've got you. Normally, whenever you place your order for a pig, we can normally get it to you within 4 to 5 business days tops. If you need it rushed there are instances where we can get it quicker, but you just have to get all the proper documentation to move the pig on the highway just to get it to you guys. So it normally takes a couple days.
How many do we have currently in our fleet right now? Or do you want to call it a fleet? Yeah, I guess a fleet of pigs. Sounds funny.
Yeah, we've got 26 currently.
Nice. And then Mariah, while you're off mute, another one came in. I think you could speak to. What size generator do they need? I know that's a pretty common one. What sort of power are we talking?
That is, and this one, I never do it justice whenever I try to describe what we need. So I might hand this one off to Ryan just to kind of.
Okay, fair enough.
All right. Good morning, everybody.
Hey, Ryan.
We've always usually recommend a 175 kW generator or larger. They will run off of a smaller one if you can get them started. That's the biggest problem, is you cannot get them started with anything less usually than a 175, and have it run without overheating the circuits or overloading it and popping the circuits in it.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for joining us
Yep.
as our distinguished guest panelist.
So yeah, I had a couple other small items here from when you guys were talking, so I jotted down a couple notes.
Yeah, go for it. Thanks.
So if I may, most of the pigs do come with the hot hoses that run on the electric blowers that go from the blower to the pig. So most of them do have what we call the hot hose on them.
Okay.
You do have a couple diesel mounted blowers on trailers, and those do have all the hoses with them. And those are all 4-inch hoses. One other thing would be for if you're trying to move that pig on site, if you're trying to move it with an excavator or a wheel loader or something along those lines, and it has 30-30 brake chambers, you'll have to cage the brakes to move it, or supply air to it somehow to get it to move around on your site.
All good stuff. Appreciate it, Ryan. Thanks for joining us again. Let's see.
Phil, we had another pig question come in. What is the load time into the pig from a truck and out of the pig into a spreader?
Yeah, I'm
Ryan is about one.
ooh. I don't know if it's just on my end, Mariah. You're breaking up on my end, maybe for others too. You mind repeating?
Ryan can answer that question.
Oh, thanks. It really does depend on the material. LKD flows much easier than quicklime. If I was going to say, and it depends on what trailer and style trailer you have, but I'd say anywhere roughly between 45 minutes to an hour and a half to unload into, and probably just as much to get it back out.
We got a question about hopping back to the soil side. When drying soils and lifts at 4% for this example, is mellowing as important compared to stabilization with quicklime? So to pull out what's important to me here, we're drying, so there's plenty of water around, and then the 4% dose. So drying compared to stabilization and mellow period. So for drying applications, whenever there is way too much water around, mellowing is not needed. There's enough water and we're mixing it in properly, things are going to hydrate. I guess it depends on the size of the quicklime too. If we're using pebble quicklime compared to quicklime fines, just something to keep in mind, you still have to make sure things are completely hydrated. Think of it as a sugar cube versus granulated sugar in your coffee. And then, however, so we typically like to see a mellow period for stabilization of 4 hours. I know folks out there are doing it less, but the easy button is 4 hours with the second mix whenever we're talking the quicklime fines.
Yeah, and maybe I'll add just a little bit to that too, is that we know that today, if you're using a soil reclaimer and you're properly mixing the soil, you're pulverizing it, and if you have adequate water, you're going to hydrate any oxide extremely rapidly. I mean, the strong affinity for water ensures that. When you hydrate quicklime, it doesn't matter what size it is. If it's gone through a pulverizer, a soil reclaimer, and it hydrates, it's going to basically self-explode, right? The oxides expand dramatically when they convert to a hydroxide, and they turn themselves into flour-sized particles. So as long as you get good distribution with the water, the original sizing doesn't have nearly the impact, as long as there's adequate water in the system. The mellow time becomes much more critical if you're not using proper mixing and if the PIs of the soil start getting well above 20, because that's when you really need to have a little bit more time to let the oxides react with the clay and start modifying those so you get the better PI reduction, or more importantly, if you're looking for the elimination of shrink and swell. Because you want to make sure that you have adequate time for those reactions to start occurring, because you're going to get better compaction, and you're going to have an easier time working with those soils to compact them if you give them a little bit more time to mellow. So those are the key things. When you get into stabilization, when you have inadequate water, it's a little bit of a different discussion, and we can go into that if there's questions on that. But at the end of the day, most of the mellow specifications that exist today, I believe, are fairly antiquated, and we're working to solve that issue. And I think most of you contractors who are doing drying jobs know that you've gotten away with a single mix, a short mellow period, and you've not had issues. So again, if we want to go into a deeper discussion with that, we can. But I think at the high level, that would be the way I would respond to that.
Thanks, Dale. And that kind of leads right into the last question that I see is, whenever you're drying with either products, how do you know when everything's reacted? And it gets back to what Dale said about it turns into like a flower size. So even if you have a white clump sitting there, if you kind of touch it and it breaks apart into dust, then it's been fully hydrated, and it's just a matter of just having things spread and distributed in there. But that's kind of the easy way to know that you still don't have a piece of quicklime that's kind of quicklime is friable. You can still break that. If it was a pebble lime, you can still break it. It's not like hard as a rock, but you'd be able to tell the difference between a piece of quicklime and then hydrated lime, which is essentially flour like dust.
Phil, we had another pig question come in. It says, ideally, the pig is set at a 0 slope. Is there a max allowable slope pig can be set on safely?
Ooh. So luckily, legal team's not on this. I think the easy answer is no. Mariah, have you heard of anyone kind of pushing a little bit? Ryan?
We've always kept them pretty level.
Yeah.
We slope them maybe a little bit towards the product line, but very minimal.
Yeah, and that's just important to keep the load distributed so none of those legs are really stressed. I mean, I think that's the overall issue there. You want to get things off balance. I'm scrolling through the questions, see if we got through them all. That's all I'm seeing, guys. Anyone else kind of have other typical things they're hearing or seeing? Went a little longer. Appreciate the questions and conversation. All right, with that, I'll say thanks for joining us. If you're looking for those PDH credits, give us a little while. We'll get them over to you. If you forgot to tell us you'd like it, just let us know, and we'll get a certificate. Get one your way. All right, thanks everybody. Have a good rest of your day. Happy Thanksgiving.